Okay, so as a little kind of preparation and warm up, let's do this tapping exercise. Rubbing your hands together. The pads of your fingers lightly tapping over your face. Just try and leave your jaw nice and loose. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder. Feeling the vibration of the muscles underneath your hand and right down with your arms, your fingers. And then on the other side. Your back. Light on the lower part of your back, going around your hips. And your legs. Light on your belly. And the upper part of your chest. And then simply standing, feet hip width apart, weight a little bit forwards, turning in the center of your body. One of the things that I think Tai Chi helps us to build and to develop over a period of time is this sense of calmness, of stillness, of slowing down, however you care to think about it. I think we often think of those kind of things like relaxing or calming down simply as the absence of something. But they also require physiological processes. So, for instance, in the autonomic nervous system in our bodies, there are two parts to it: the sympathetic, the parasympathetic. The sympathetic is sometimes described as the fight or flight network, fight or flight system. The parasympathetic is the opposite: rest and relax. So to really be able to calm, to really be able to relax, to settle in, to center, however you think about it, we have to activate certain physiological processes within our bodies. It's not simply a case of not doing something. And Tai Chi does help us to do that. There's evidence out there that meditative processes and arts and all sorts of do actually help to encourage the activity of the parasympathetic nervous system. So it's something that gradually builds, and with repetition, it's something that becomes, well, let's necessarily say easier to access, but more straightforward to access. When you've done Tai Chi for a little while, we begin to get a sense of that as an aspiration. And it's one of the fundamental principles, I think, in Tai Chi. We seek the stillness within the movement. Strongly associated with that is an awareness of our posture and our body in general and our movements, and in particular, this quality of rooting down. I've turned around so you can just see the stance I'm using for this exercise, and for many of the exercises involves my weight going forwards, my hips just settling back, and this feeling of dropping through the center of my body, feeling the lower back, hips, buttocks overhanging very, very slightly. Your weight flowing down through your body. Process of rooting down. Pretty much everything that we do in Tai Chi involves both mind and body. So there's the physical act of rooting down, and there's that focus of attention inwards and downwards towards our feet, towards the ground. And again, there's a deliberate act there to bring your thoughts into your body and to focus them downwards, to kind of begin to anchor them in the ground as much as possible. Not as a rejection of the other thoughts that we have and and things going on in our lives and so on and so forth, but just with an intention to step back so that all those other things, the time you had to arrange the time to be here for the class and those details of our lives, just allowing them to take up a back seat for a little while. The dropping of your center of gravity, the rooting down, makes you more stable. It means there's less weight being carried by the upper part of your body. And so the whole process could be characterized as just developing a little bit more space in your body physically for movement. And also space from those thoughts that keep kind of like battering down on us. And just raising your arms and then putting your hands. Put one foot forwards. Now you're transferring your weight from one foot to another. Trying to keep that feeling of your weight dropping down. So we have a curious combination in Tai Chi of a very dynamic art, but where this quality of, let's call it stillness, spaciousness, is very much the flavor of the movements. We easily lose that quality. I thought of what's going to happen tomorrow, what happened yesterday, what we're doing this evening, the plans we've got to make, all that kind of thing, pop up, reassert themselves. And all we're really trying to do is to redirect our thoughts, to refocus our attention back into our posture, our movements, the root, so on, so forth. So that just becomes a kind of habitual response, but also recognizing that actually it's not a kind of turning your back on these things. And as I say, the flavor of the actual movement, the activity, becomes in a strange way one of stillness. On the other side. And shake hands. We can't just stop thinking, and I'm not even sure it will be desirable, but we can redirect our thoughts. And looking into the subtleties and the intricacies of posture in Tai Chi is one of the ways that we do that. And of course, it does have the physical effects, hopefully, of improving our posture. So just before we go into the main body of exercises, standing with your feet hip width apart as always. Toes pointing forwards, or they could be just slightly turned out. And just rocking your weight forwards and backwards in with your feet. Now, the first thing that you'll probably notice is that if you go a long way, that happens, or your body tenses up. So first of all, just reduce the amount of movement until it's just a movement, feeling your weight move in your feet from roughly from the balls of your feet to the front part of your heels. And the pivot point is your ankles. If you can imagine this pole going up through the middle of my body, I'm doing this. Trying not to do this, not bending at the hips or rocking my head backwards and forwards. So my whole body just goes forwards a little bit and then backwards. And again, if I go too far, I'll fall over or I tense up. So what we're trying to do, thinking about the pole from here to here, in theory, it's very theoretical, there's a position where I can bring the pole to a point where it's directly in line with gravity. And being directly in line with gravity, I can just let go of it and that wouldn't happen. Of course, in practice, that's much more difficult. But some kind of what we might call a midpoint, a point of equilibrium where gravity's pulling you directly down into your feet rather than slightly forwards or backwards. The other thing I could do with the pole here is I could get guy ropes from a tent and I could tie them on and peg them out, and that would help to maintain the alignment of the pole. And so we can think of soft tissue of the body, muscle, tendon, ligament, fascia, as providing that kind of function. So there's an interaction between, maybe we can think of our skeleton and the soft tissue of the body, which gradually means that we can arrive at a kind of still point. Once again, just settling in. The ideal positioning for that would be with your weight slightly forwards, which would then encourage, once again, this feeling of your hips dropping back. So this is a process of, again, mind and body really just gently coming to rest. A quality that we call central equilibrium. And we will come out of this inevitably, but we have the means to go back into it. So again, this gives us part of the flavor that pervades the movements. Now let your hips drop back a little bit more, and then push it up. So that feeling of rooting down becomes a bit deeper and a bit stronger and produces a push upwards. It's like being in water and dropping down into the water and then feeling the buoyancy of the water pushing you up. And this sense of a rising, expanding energy, or however you care to think about it. The body filling up and then emptying them, bringing your hands around as though you're cradling the ball, and that filling up, pushing your elbows out, turning your hands over as though they're resting on the ball. Let your hips drop and then your shoulders and your arms drop. And push it up. This is the exercise called rooting down. Easy and gently expanding and so between these two movements, the downward movement, what we call the yielding to the pull of gravity, and the rising movement, we have a very strong dynamic quality beginning to build. So again, going back to what I was saying at the beginning, the root is the place that we can bring our attention to, one of the places we can bring our attention to just get the experience of that little bit of settling, of quietening, of stillness. It is also one and the same time the process of rooting down, one of the main sort of energetic processes that we work with to reach. But this exercise is simply called rooting down. One more time. And then changing Wild goose, the image of the bird in flight, that more focused attention, that more spacious mind, allowing us to perhaps just engage different images that can have an impact on the movement. If they're the right image for us. Always interesting to observe, I think, how our bodies respond to imagery. And then parting the clouds and swinging around, a gentle filling, expanding movement, not quite a stretch. Back down. Do this one more time. Go back to the first of these and link them in a little sequence of three, rooting down. Take the time as you change over. Turn the fingers out, the wild goose. And then your hands drop down, parting the clouds. And just observing the change within your body, slightly different patterns of expansion and contraction, slightly different parts of the body engaging as you change from one movement to another. And so, again, this meditative element, your attention being drawn more deeply into your body. And with that deepening of your attention goes your intention. And so gradually, mind and body begin to harmonize in these movements, both in terms of the stillness that I described, but also in terms of producing, almost like producing the movement between them. One more round. And stand. Okay. So Tai Chi and Qigong are movements, are practices that bring together three elements of the mind, body, and movement or energy in a kind of mutually supporting way. The aspect of intention, much of what we do, if not everything, is generated by intention. If you go into your kitchen to get a drink, there's an intentionality there. And quite often you don't even need to think about it. You grab a cup, you turn the tap on, and you might even be talking to somebody. So it's not a very kind of like conscious intention, but it's there nevertheless. And as we begin to focus our attention a little bit, our awareness comes into our body. We've got a clearer sense of what's going on in the body, we can bring a degree of intentionality into the movements. We do that in various ways. I've described two of them then. One is by the use of imagery. There's an image of a bird in flight, perhaps, or a variety of images that we might engage with. And it's interesting to observe how our bodies respond quite naturally to imagery. It's a kind of Pavlovian response, really. And the other is through this process of becoming more aware of what's going on in the body, we realize there are small changes within the body, and they're often the ones that are most likely to respond to our intentionality. A slight difference between one movement, one part of one movement or another. So as we become more familiar, that aspect of the art builds with us. But again, I would emphasize, we're not forcing anything to happen in the body. The first step is to observe what is happening and to work with that. We work the natural structures, the natural patterns of movement of our bodies. So going back to this basic stance, we align the weight and we become aware that there's a pull through the body, the pull of gravity, and particularly with that feeling that I described as overhanging in our hips, there's a natural tendency for our hips to want to sort of drop down. At the same time, we often resist that. So the intention is to not resist, to actually allow a sense of dropping through the hips. Then we let that go a little bit further, being careful not to bend the knees too much. We don't want to strain our knees. And then at a certain point, the resilience in our legs pushes us up again. And when we feel that, then we simply allow ourselves to go up. We're not forcing ourselves up. We're not forcing ourselves down. And we feel that movement building through the whole of the body. And once again, we can begin to let our arms respond to that. As you push up, just focusing on one side, pull your elbow up, pull your fingers up, reaching up a little bit, wind your hands around and pull down. This is dragon plucks the stars from the sky. And switching your attention to the opposite side and pushing up and pull down. Let's stand back. This is an extension through your body. Try not to think in terms of stretching. Usually when we stretch, we're thinking of stretching a particular muscle, which can be a useful thing to do, but it's not what we're doing here. If anything, you want to feel that the big muscles of your body, particularly your arms and shoulders, deltoid, biceps, triceps, and so on, are actually softening, relaxing a little bit as you push your arm up. So that rather than just a part of your arm, and the same would apply to the side of your body and even down into your legs, rather than just a part of that whole side of your body, the whole of that side of your body, all the soft tissue is extending and then contracting. And that would include the muscles, but would also include tendons, ligaments, fascia, skeletal muscle, and so on. So the extension is through your whole body. Dragon plucks the stars from the sky. Don't rush. Don't rush to change over from one movement to another, from one side to another. This time, don't go all the way down, just get that slight feeling of your hips overhanging. Bring your hands, so that the inside of your hand or your arm lightly touches your hips. And from there, push up, feel the extensions through your back. Almost as though all the spaces between the vertebrae are expanding just a little bit, and indeed in the rib cage. And back down, touching the sides of your body, and pushing out sideways. And again, you can think of this in many ways. Imagine almost every cell in your body along a particular line, perhaps the line of your back, extending out, feeling that extension go up into your arms and into the palms of your hands, and then contracting again. This time, as you push out sideways, turn just a little bit in your hips. Turn back to the front. Remember to give yourself time to let your hands just lightly touch the side of your hips. Turn the other way. Expanding, and then so when we expand, when we extend, it's more like a balloon extending. You blow into a balloon, then it won't be just one part of the balloon that begins to get bigger. It'll be the whole balloon. The phrase often used to cover this idea in Tai Chi is that when one part of your body is in motion, your whole body is. This is pushing in four directions. Recognizing the significance of that center part of your body. You bring your hands in, it's the center part of your body that drops towards the ground. When we expand, it's almost as though we expand in that part. And when we turn in that part of the body, it guides our hands in a particular direction. So your hands drop, and then going with that bit of an expansion from the center of your body, your arm being pushed out, swing it up until it comes in line with your nose, and then straight down, past your nose, past your navel, so down the center line of your body, and then once again. And elbows slightly curved. And this time, when you get to the top, just turn a little bit. Slowly becoming more aware, not just of the what we might think of as the mechanics, however subtle, of the movement, but those patterns of flow, expansion, contraction, the fluidity of the movement, the energy of the movement. Change in size. And add in the turn. So once again, let your hips drop down a little bit more, and very carefully, gently push your hips back so that your pelvis tilts, noticing how that brings your head forward. So don't go too far with this because it can be a strain on the back. Then let the hips drop down, let gravity pull your hips down so that brings you back to the upright position and seat down again, hips going back. It means that your head goes forward, so a gentle lengthening through your spine and then back to the upright position by allowing gravity to draw your hips to the ground. Then push up. Don't strain in your back or your neck or your shoulders. Come back to the upright side, but rather let gravity do the work for you. And then from here, as you push up, your arms push down. And as you sink down and go forwards, they too are swung forwards. That extension in your back, moving out through your arms and into your fingers. And then they just hang down as you come into the upright position. It's called rowing a boat in the middle of the lake. I'm doing this quite big, so hopefully you can get a sense for what's going on in my hips and so on and so forth. But it doesn't have to be a big movement. Just be very careful. It's obviously a very strong movement, both in our knees and in our back. And as we push out, you always want to feel you could have moved a little bit further. Remember, we're trying to cultivate that spaciousness within the body. If we go to the full extreme of the movement, then we kind of hit a barrier. One more time. And then combining these two movements in the center of the body, first of all, rotate horizontally, then once again, hips going back, vertical rotation, pushing your arms out, turn, come back to the upright position. And this is called polishing the table. Go the opposite direction. Again, that length in through your back and out through your arms and your fingers. Turn. You just turn around so you can see more clearly what's happening with my hips. Being exaggerated, swinging around, coming back up. And noticing how you come back to that upright position without the straining, without the tightening up in our body. So we end up with this lovely sort of open, spacious posture once again, not straining against the pull of gravity. And that allows for this movement, this fluidity, this energy to flow through our bodies harmoniously. One more in each direction. And then so from that sense of rooting down, our center of gravity dropping and the anchoring of our attention, we begin to be able to move. And so stillness and movement working with each other. The center part of the body is sometimes described as being like the hub of a wheel. And if you think about a bicycle wheel, the hub is locked into the frame and the wheel will rotate around it. And if the hub isn't locked into the frame, it will pretty soon stop moving. The wheel will drop off or something like that. So it's not stillness or movement, but stillness and movement. And gradually we learn to bring together three aspects of the whole art. Obviously, this is a very physical art. So the body and our posture and the subtleties of the movement, the mechanics of the movement are very important. Mind, I've already talked about, both in terms of the quietening of our attention, and from that, a greater sense of awareness, and with that awareness, a greater sense of intention, how we can direct intention, if you like to think of it like that. And then the movement, the flow, the energy itself. And these are the three treasures of Tai Chi that we try and bring together. I think of them as being like three legs of a tripod. If you lose one leg, it's no longer a tripod. So these different aspects intertwine, and exactly where we bring our attention at any one point and where we bring our intention can vary. It might be on the patterns of expansion and contractions, the energy of the movement. It might be on the relationship between hips and shoulders, for instance, and so on and so forth. But ultimately, we want to bring all of them together. So a very important aspect of the posture, the rooting down, is that with the dropping of our center of gravity, there is a much increased stability. This is where Tai Chi gets its well-deserved reputation of helping people with mobility problems, with stability problems, to regain that stability, regain that mobility. Simply put, the lower your center of gravity, the more stable you're going to be. And it's also true that the lower your center of gravity, the less need there is to carry weight in the upper part of your body. So now, jump 1 foot out a little bit and step forwards. Keep the width of your step. You can see the background between my legs there. And just beginning to transfer your weight from front to back. Once again, if I demonstrate this with Paul, then as much as possible, I'm keeping myself in line with that as I move. Try not to lean forwards or backwards, and don't make it too long a step. If it's a huge stride, you'll end up straining or tilting or whatever. So your stance is that your feet are hip width apart and about the same, or as you get more used to this, probably slightly longer in the legs. Maintaining the upright stance and as much as possible the root as you move, or at least in theory. In practice, quite often in the transition from one foot to another, we lose some of that stance. So we want to take a moment each time we arrive, forwards or backwards, once again, just settle in. This could be a very lengthy process, but it can also be quite intuitive and quite quick. There's the intention to come back to the feeling in the body, the feeling of rooting down, of alignment, of spaciousness. In a way, we can put whatever label we like on this. But an intention need only take a moment, but it's an important moment. There's that settling of our attention, that quietening in the mind that can help to stop our thoughts running away with us. And at the same time, it gives the body just a chance to root, to settle. At the moment, you're moving towards the leg, but you're not quite getting over the leg. So this time, when you go into the front leg, push your back knee forward so the heel comes up and you'll shift slightly more forwards. When you go back, raise the front toes and again shift. And the idea is to bring your upper body directly into line with your supporting leg. Trying to keep your pelvis level. And remember, from the last couple of exercises, rowing a boat and polishing the table, a significant factor there was allowing your hips to drop back. So we learn to be more stable on one leg, again, through allowing gravity to work through our body without resistance. And then from here, just stepping in. Push back, forward of your foot down, lower your heel, gently press the foot into the floor and let your weight. When we step forwards, it's heel and then the ball of the foot and then press it, and then your weight. So you're walking on thin ice. You're trying to test the ice before you commit your weight. All of these different elements, I'm describing them in a very linear sense. You know, we root down, we become more stable and so on and so forth. But they actually intertwine with each other. When we root down, we become a little bit more stable. When we're a little bit more stable, we're less tense. When we're less tense and tight in the body, gravity has a freer passage down. That means we root down more and so on and so forth. And shake it. Try that on the other side. First of all, what we call fixed steps. So don't go straight into the stepping. This is an important exercise. It's very important in the Tai Chi system because this forward and backward dynamic, the transfer of the weight, is again one of the key sort of factors, one of the key energies in producing the movement. We've got the up and down movement that I described still going on because I'm settling into the back foot. And as the back foot expands, the back leg expands, rather than letting it push me up, I'm intentionally directing the movement forwards and then the settling down and into the back. It's also very important because it's one of the key exercises if you are looking to improve your mobility or stability. This is one of the most important exercises that you can do. Once again, go forwards, push the back knee forwards, and your heel comes up. You may notice as you push the back knee forwards, there's a stronger sense of dropping through that back hip. Toes going up. We want that sense of dropping. To my mind, it's not quite so straight, so obvious here, but it's still there. And then, so gradually getting that root and that alignment over your supporting leg until you're able to just carefully bring the empty foot in, step out, planting the foot, transferring the weight. And then stepping through. And going back. Good. And so have your right foot forwards, mirroring my movement. Arms at your sides, weight in your back foot. And what we're going to do is you go forwards and then you draw your arms through. So going forwards, let your arms just follow the movement and swing through as you settle into the front foot. and then back. Imagine doing this in water. Another one of the very common images that we use. That it's an interesting image because it helps us to develop the flow of the movement. It encourages a softening of the body. We know intuitively that if we tighten up, if we hold our arms or our body stiff in water, it becomes much harder work. So it encourages this sense of just releasing, of letting go of tightness, particularly in the big muscles of the body, as I described earlier. It also, contradicting that perhaps, it actually, because it's a denser medium and because we're sort of moving through that denser medium, it also conditions both our body and the sense of the flow of energy. So it's one of the key elements that we use when we're trying to develop one of the really long-term aims in this art of a quality that we refer to quite often as internal strength. I often refer to it as resilience. It's a conditioning of the whole of our body, often very subtle, not just the big mobilizing muscles. It's a conditioning of the flow of the movement. So it begins to feel not just as though you're moving through water, but as though water's moving through you. And with that, a sense of connection begins to build. Fisherman casting net. It's like a wave starting in your back foot, coming up through your back and out through the front, and then reversing that from the front. And it's that wave-like energy that's moving your arms, not straining in the shoulders. This time, when you go forward, as you settle into the front foot, once again turn. And once again, that turn redirects your arms. Move back, as your arms drop down, settle into your back foot and turn. This is called Wind Blows the Willows. The willow tree is a much prized image in arts like Tai Chi. Deep roots and a very supple wood. Said that the willow tree will bend in the wind, but the wind won't break it. We have here the full combination. We're told that in Tai Chi, the movement in total is rooted in the feet. Everything that implies from mind and body. Transmitted through our legs with that transfer of the weight. Guided and directed, focused through the center part of our body, and expressed in our upper body. Once again, strong focus of attention in our physical center and from there down to the ground. Giving us the basis for this stillness within the movement. And then just do those two movements with your other foot forward. So starting with fisherman cast net. Being in that sense of connectivity in the body, how what is happening in your legs, your knees, and your hips is reflected in what's happening in your arms and your wrists and your fingers. One part of your body is in motion. Your whole body is in motion. Your whole body, one way or another, is engaged. In fact, we could say not just the whole body, but body and mind, the whole of you, engaged in this particular movement. This time turning, wind blows the willows. Expanding, contracting, expand. Try not to stiffen up in your shoulders, your arms. Try to feel that wave-like movement pushing up through your body, pushing your arms away from your sides. And then they drop down, almost brushing past your center, expanding out. And we can combine this with the stepping. You can either go forwards or backwards, depending on where you have the space. I'm going to go forwards. As I turn, again, my back heel comes up, my foot comes in. Just checking that my hips are still hanging back and down. I haven't stiffened up. Step through, doing the same thing. It's called dragonfly skims the water. What you may find that you're able to do, bring into the movement, is to bring your knee up and rotate your hip, bring the foot up. If you find that that's too wobbly for you, then just keep the foot down. Remember, the key to this is to find that you're able to root down, to align yourself over the leg, not straining. To remain upright. Change direction. And bringing the feet down. In an exercise like that, I always feel it's more important to maintain the flow, the dynamic of the movement, than it is to get caught up in, can I stand on one leg or not? But if if the idea of standing on one leg is something that you want to try and develop, and if you find that as soon as you lift your leg up, you're kind of wobbling around, remember that the key to this is to yield to the pull of gravity. Effectively, what that's asking us to do is, like in water, if you want to feel the buoyancy of the water, you relax in the water. We learn to relax, to release the tightness, to release the stiffness. Easier said than done when you're standing on one leg, I always think. So the way to build that is just to hold on to something, to give yourself that little bit of a support, and start just by raising your knee. And what happens, can you actually find a way of standing in this posture, showing from the other side, that still allows you to let your hips drop back? Can you feel that if you tense up, you're lifting your center of gravity? Can you find a way just to allow your center of gravity to release? And then eventually you try and do it without, but you take it in stages, so that you begin to experience the value of this rooting down. When I first encountered that last exercise, dragonfly skims the water, that was how I approached it. It wasn't that long ago. I was like, well, this is tricky. I'm all over the place. So you hold on to something and you investigate how you can raise the leg without everything stiffening up and tightening up. And because there's a lot of trial and error in, you try this, it doesn't work, and so on and so forth. Nobody wants to fall over. I don't want to fall over. So you hold on to something while you're investigating this. And it's a good example again of how these three elements of mind and body and energy interact with each other, because we know the feel of the movement that we're looking for, the sense of the flow. And that's an aspiration and an intention. And gradually we just let that build. So that can be a useful idea. And to really emphasize that process of settling and coming in, our final exercise, Embrace Tiger, Return to Mountain, really does put the emphasis on that. Start by letting your hips drop down and then pushing up, your arms being pushed out a bit like the wild goose. Bring them around as though you're going to hold a ball against your chest. Then let your elbows drop. Turn the hands palm down, starting with your hips, sinking down, feeling your shoulders drop, coming back to this rooted, still position, and then pushing out again. Embrace Tiger, Return to Mountain. Aware of the pull of gravity through your hips and your back, and just prepare to yield with that, and letting that movement bring these three elements of mind, body, energy inwards and downwards towards the ground. And from there, of course, we push out. We're not stuck in the ground. And in fact, as we're discovering, it's the sinking down and the quietening that inevitably leads to the expansion. It's not either or. One more time. And lovely. Thank you very much, as always. And as always, do feel free to get in touch if you have any questions or anything. But bye for now.